You're listening to the Better 2 podcast with DM Needham. Hi gang, Donna here. Thanks for tuning into the Better 2 podcast. Today's guest is Jules. And Jules has a book out called The Making of a Woman. Jules' story is kind of one that I could relate to in certain aspects, not all aspects, but she grew up in the 70s, kind of like I did. And she went through childhood trauma, check. Alcoholism was prevalent in her family, check. And sexual abuse. Well, sexual abuse, I'm not sure about that, but I have had my moments of things that have come up after thinking about it and going through. Because the one thing about our mind, and this is something we talk about, is our mind has a way of protecting us and keeping us from the traumas of the past and the trauma of something that we didn't want to deal with. So we reframed it. We didn't make it as dark as it possibly was. So we unpack all this. It's a very serious episode, but in the same breath, there's some humor to it as we talk and reminisce about what it was like growing up as a child of the 70s. So I hope you enjoy it. This episode of the Better 2 podcast is brought to you by Kitty Mystic and DM Needham, author of My Days with the Dark Muse, as well as Love is Worth Waiting For. Hi, Jules. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. So where are you located? You're in the middle of a movie, you said.
Oh my gosh, I am. I'm in the middle of boxes. That's where I live. No, I'm right outside of Dallas in Texas.
I used to live in Richardson.
Small world. Yes. Yes. It was time to get out of the concrete jungle for a while. So
that's exactly when I moved to Dallas, that was my first thought, because I had grown up in New Orleans where you have all the architecture. And then seeing Dallas, it was just like, wow, this is a concrete jungle.
Yeah. And it's just this vibrating, yeah, I'm glad to be here. Even in my boxes, I am glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your story. I mean, you have a book out, but your story is rather empowering because you beat childhood trauma and you had some sexual abuse as well. So tell us a little bit about that if you're willing to.
Oh, absolutely. I was raised, better yet, my mom raised me in the early 70s. So it kind of sets the stage of resources. Right. And so I grew up in the Midwest. It was, I was an only child. My mom worked at an agency and my dad had a small business of his own. He was a laborer. And so it's just kind of a mom and pop type of thing. The thing that was very prevalent, though, in the area and within my family was alcoholism. And it was something that I didn't really note or realize that anything was wrong until way into my mid-teens. Because everybody drank. Everybody did, right? So yeah. So that's kind of, that's where life started. And I loved my daddy. He adored me and he would take me hunting. And so I just had this magnificent experience of like the first 7 years of my life. I have chills even as I say that. And unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, no judgment, I guess, there was an evening when my father was at his wits. He was at his wits' end. And the best solution, he thought, was to do a family suicide. And so my mom, whisked me up and off we went at 2:00 in the morning and we ran. And I was really confused. I have no idea what's all going on. Again, women of the 70s, she couldn't have keep both of our heads above water. And so within a 6-month window, she was getting ready to get married again.
I'm a child. I was born in the late 60s. So I know about this. When my parents split, we moved in with my grandmother. And I do understand, my mother committed suicide. And unfortunately, my half sister, her husband did exactly what your father was going to do. Okay. And he actually completed it. So I understand those facets of the story. And growing up in New Orleans, after my parents split, yes, in New Orleans, alcohol is everywhere.
Oh,
You know,
isn't that the truth?
I mean, that is what New Orleans is known for. So it's like
Yeah.
you don't necessarily see it. I mean, I've said this before in the podcast. I was in a bar when I was 8 years old.
And that was normal, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they put music on in the jukebox, and you'd dance while they were drinking, and that was it. That was the way it was. I mean, you didn't think
Yeah.
anything about it. For me, though, because I see that you had alcoholism. For me, it was kind of like I didn't like the taste of it unless it was really fruity and the
Oh,
alcohol was completely masked. I could not stand it. My half sister, when she was 2, they were giving her beer. Me, on the other hand, it
okay.
was like, eh-eh.
Ah,
So I can relate to a lot of these things because I grew up that way.
and it just isn't it amazing just how that was normal.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I remember driving with my uncle, and he would have his, can of beer right in the console right there as he was driving. I mean, the pull tabs that would come off. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
throw them in the back. This was just life.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's amazing sometimes to explain this to people where they're like, "Where did you come from?"
Well, or you're at your aunt's house or somebody else's house that smokes, and they're like, "Hey, can you go get my cigarettes for me? Can you light it for me?" I mean, there's no way, you would do that today. You rode in the back of a pickup truck. There's no way none of this.
Do you remember in the back remember the station wagons? You just
Mhm.
pack all the kids in the back, the
The way
dogs
back.
back there, furthest away from the parents as possible. And we're back there, we're doing our own things and crawling over the seats. And man, you'd go to jail for that today.
Yeah, totally. My
Yeah.
husband had fond memories of talking about being in the way back. He's like, yeah, because he had siblings, and he's like, being in the way back, man, we'd push each other, and I'm like, okay, I mean, all the memories he had with that stuff was just kind of like, okay.
And it was rougher. I think times we
Yeah.
were rougher. I mean, like we're talking about some of the incidents that take place. I mean, like there was just less emotions with things. It was like you just did things and you played hard, and you played all day outside, and mom and dad weren't lovey-touchy, or I mean, they're just my parents. And so things just seemed harder and more restricted.
Well, and you got, instead of, oh, how are you doing? You got, you're gonna cry? I got something for you to cry about.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, isn't that the truth?
Yeah. I mean, now it's like, what's wrong? Tell me what's wrong. Come on, talk to me. And back then it was like,
Do you want me to pull this car over?
right. Do you want to go sit out in the parking lot while we finish eating? I mean, there's the whole, this is child endangerment at this point. But I remember waiting out in the parking lot at the mall while my mom was in the mall for 2 hours in the summer. This would not fly nowadays.
You can't even leave your pet in the car that long.
No.
Oh my God.
But maybe this is why Generation X is just such kind of the screw you mentality.
Like, you all are crazy. We're going to do this a whole different way. Thank God. Thank God these things aren't practiced anymore.
Yeah. I mean, granted, I like the 80s. It was fun being a teenager then, but it's better that some of the things that we went through, people aren't having to go through now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I have to ask, was that the end of your dad? I mean, did you see your dad anymore? Did he commit suicide, or what exactly happened?
I saw him. There were two situations where he came in and kind of intervened, because when my mom remarried, I was then adopted by that man. So then my father lost all parental rights. So then anytime he would come, it would be considered endangerment or something like that. So that happened like twice in a 25-year window. And so, and I was with my mom. I loved my mom. And so when my mom said, we're not ever going to see him again, I didn't understand, but okay, so I took on her belief system, and why it was best. And then when I got into the bigger family, I just knew to sit down and shut up. So.
And that's the other caveat to growing up in the 70s was, be seen, but not heard.
Not heard. Yes.
And then on top of that, you need to live up to everybody else's expectations of you.
Yeah. and you don't even know who you are.
Right.
But
Right.
you better do what I want you to do.
Right.
Okay.
Which
Yeah.
I will say this, one thing we had easier is we didn't have to start thinking about college until we were in high school, where now they're kind of going, oh, you're in junior high. You really ought to start thinking about college now.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, even at age 25, let alone in middle school. How do you even fathom that? You're not even developed to that degree. So
No.
yeah, a lot of expectations there.
And they're still continuing with that. And the one thing that they don't teach is stress and coping mechanisms. I mean, when you think about what you've gone through,
Mhm.
and and I'm sure you've heard this before, it's like, how did you manage to turn out okay? Well, oh,
Ah,
it's life. It's what you're given, and you either survive or you don't. And that's especially when you have somebody in your life that has threatened suicide, you kind of get a new perspective, because it's like you have to realize, am I going to take another day and succeed, or am I just going to give up?
absolutely. Or am I going to become, for me, it was, am I going to become like my brother, like my stepbrother in that new family? It was kind of like they were so different. We'll just
Hmm.
label it that. And it was kind of like, are you going to do anything with your life? It was like, I was adamant that I was not going to end up like them, so that was probably part of the fuel that kept me going, is that I was not gonna settle for, living in a trailer and having some boyfriend who would, beat me up or whatever, or heaven forbid, I'd get pregnant and
Yeah.
have a baby and then have to, I mean, absolutely not. I was completely not going that route. So,
So how old were you when you had to deal with the sexual abuse?
that started when my mom and my second father, they were starting to date. Now, this is kind of also like you're saying, where your mom just put you out in the car for 2 hours. So this is where, well, kids babysat kids. If there's
Yeah.
two of them, they're going to be fine. And so I don't. he was he was, I think, I mean, he was old enough. He was 15. But at that time, I was still living up. We were still living at our home, and it had already started then. And it started with, the casual, like we had a toy room. We had an extra room. So we're in the toy room. And then he brought out the magazine and then started to talk to me about, this is what a woman looks like. And one day you're going to be this woman. And, I was like, okay, it kind of paralleled with what I had been told. You're going to grow up, you're going to have your own family. He was just telling me another part of it. So I think even in my child's mind, it was like, okay, it felt weird, but a lot of things felt weird at that age, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, but I could tell you today, looking back, there's still that predatory feeling that is definitely present. But for me in my mind to think that, well, why didn't you just get up and go tell somebody? Well, because it wasn't that weird. Does that
Yeah.
make any sense?
It does. Well, I mean, I'm gonna take something lighthearted here, because back in the 70s, Mattel had come out with a doll called Grow Up Skipper. And you would turn
Mhm.
her arm and she'd grow taller and she'd grow boobs.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, once again, this would not fly today, but back then this was, but
Okay.
here's a fascinating thing. And it took me, why didn't you get up and leave? Well, here's something that it took me. Okay. So we moved in with my stepfather when I was 16.
Okay.
It took me until a year ago to realize this, to put all these little pieces together, because your mind doesn't let you frame everything. It protects you.
Yes.
So when we moved in, my mom's like, well, Shelly likes to give manicures. Let him give you a manicure or pedicure, excuse me, pedicure.
Okay.
And I'm
Okay.
like, okay. And if you do, he'll buy you a really nice pair of sandals when we go to Dallas.
Okay.
Okay. At
Okay.
16, you're not going to think anything about this, right? All
Yeah.
right. So he does this a couple of times. Fast forward, my mom dies. This is 1991. And I'm going through some videotapes at their house. And I find a videotape of nothing but her feet. I don't think anything about it yet. Don't put it all together yet. I'm at my friend's house last year and I'm talking to her. And then I realized that you let this man who had a foot fetish touch your daughter's feet. And then Then after she had tried to commit suicide and survived and everything, she had the audacity of accusing me of sleeping with the man that I could not stand.
But in her mind, I would understand why she felt threatened, because she
Yes.
thought it was okay.
Yeah, and you got to wonder what conversation they had that I wasn't privy to, that he may have said something about me, because he would make comments that more than a mouthful was a waste, because I was busty. When I came home from my boyfriend's house one day and we weren't active yet, he asked me, he's like, so right at the table with his two kids, and I'm sorry, yes, I do curse in my podcast occasionally. He asked me, it's like, so are you fucking him?
And how old were you?
I was, at that point, I was 19.
Oh my God. Right there in front of everybody.
Yeah.
First off, you don't talk to somebody like that anyway, let alone.
No, at 17 was the comment about the boobs. So this, but here's the thing, your mind doesn't. Him and I got into a physical altercation once, and he had his hands around my throat. And I always said, oh, it was a physical altercation. When I hit about 40, I realized it's like, no, that wasn't a physical altercation. His hands were around your throat. He was trying to kill you. But your mind has a way of protecting you, because how could I handle, especially when my mom says, well, if you call the cops and he wants to kick you out, I can't stop him.
Yeah, you cannot process that.
No. And that was when I was 20 at the time. So, I mean, your mind tends to want to protect you. So when you're telling me that, you say, well, why didn't you get up? Because firstly, he's older. Number two, he was left in charge. So you kind of feel, okay, he's the more mature individual. Nothing's going on here, because why would he be doing something wrong if they left him in charge? So I can understand why you stayed.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too that there was so many new things going on. And when the new relationship started, my mom, I don't know if she went into a survival mode. I don't know, because like you, there's so many things that are so many parts are being revealed, where I kind of like, would I have done that as a mother? So I'm having a lot of that as well. So, it's like, to the point where you're right. He's older, and well, my mom, he's in charge, and I just supposed to do what he says. I'm going to go to bed. And when he says I go to bed, I mean, yeah, your body, we're not developed.
No.
And I think we have that beautiful copanism of that it's like that disassociation or the blackouts.
Well, I often say, because my mom, when she tried to do it when I was 16, she had taken pills the night before. She had a big blow up with my stepfather, made a mess in the house. And then she went out the next morning and got in the car and started in the garage. And I told her, so I'm calling the paramedics. She's like, don't you dare. I'll never forgive you. I'm like, that's fine. That's fine. So I called. They show up. She's in a coma for 3 days after they pump her stomach. She convinces them that she's burned out. Doesn't tell them anything else. And of course, bipolar was not even on the radar at this point. No, mental health was, so they didn't give her any other treatment or anything else. After that, she proceeds to tell, now mind you, my stepfather doesn't come out of the bedroom until he hears the police sirens. Then he shows up. Then he comes out of the bedroom to act like the concerned husband. And by this point, she's so messed up. And of course, you got the neighbors staring, going, what's going on? She's got the flu. She got the flu. Just so after that, my mom proceeded to tell everybody that would listen, oh, Shelley saved me. That was my stepfather. And I'm just like, okay. And I thought for a long time it bothered me, but I realized that was her way of coping. She could not handle that her husband was not willing to save her, but her daughter was. So just like your mom, it goes back to that survival skill. You need that mode of, I did this to protect my daughter and me. I need to do this, and I need to keep protecting. So even if you would have went to your mom, I guarantee you, even if you would have went to your mom, she wouldn't have listened.
Well, because there's been the question, how did she not see this? I'm at this point, her only birth child. How could she not see, especially if, and it was prevalent in those times, if something like that had happened to her, how I can see that in a little girl's eyes immediately. We see it in other women. And then better yet, how could the other women in my life, how could they not see that this was going on? You look at pictures of me, and I'm just the first people are when we moved to California, the babysitter was like, "You guys looked really sick. You were skinny, you were really white, pale." It was just like, how could nobody just even ask if everything was okay?
Because everybody had gone through so much and they wanted to ignore everything. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that I was told, seeing a therapist, that you most likely were sexually abused as a kid. And the only time that I really get a recollection or hinkling of that is if I start doing a meditation, then my godfather comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I've blocked it enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the thing. We block it. So not so much us. I mean, we can block it from ourselves, but for other people, I think they block it as well. I once was reading something to my mom and was pretty sad. And she goes, "I don't want to hear anymore." I said, "Why?" She goes, "Because I don't want to know you're hurting."
Yes, yes, yes. I've had friends like that. "No, I don't want you. Don't break up with him because I don't want you in pain. I don't want."
I mean, I came home from school crying and knock on her door, and I'm like, "Mom, I need to talk to you." She's like, "I don't have time for you. I have worse problems." So this is what I'm getting. This is why I'm saying this to you. It's like, I think at a certain point, our parents, especially that generation, because they went through their own trauma and they didn't have somebody to be there for them, they didn't know how to be there for us.
How do you give what you don't have?
Exactly.
How do you love when you don't know how to love? Some of the healing I've done has been around, imagining having a mother who could love me, not my mother, a mother's love. So it's like at least introduce that to my being, right? But yeah, you don't realize until you get to somewhere in your life where other people are like with me in my relationship, and my husband's like, "What have I done that you do not trust me?" Yeah. Oh, it's like it's not you at all. It's just instinctual. I don't know.
Right.
I'm very independent. It's just the way it's always been. And for something like that to come up and then be like, why is it I've got this amazing opportunity? And why is it that, and I don't feel it was self-sabotaging or, any of those, therapeutic terms, but it was more like, why was I so scared? And so then during my meditations, going in and, kind of looking around and being like, yeah, why? Because my daddy was going to leave me and he was going to take my mom too,
That's the thing. I think, when you look at where does this fear come from, the stuff that gets us stuck, it's from that time when we were kids, because, I had the mom that would tell me I could do anything I put my mind to, but the next breath would be, one day you're going to fall flat on your face, and I hope I'm there to see it.
So she was a child herself.
Oh, yeah.
Like she talked to you as another child that same age.
She was competitive. She was very much, I mean, it's like I was taking dance class, and when I changed schools, she had missed 1 year from being a dance teacher. So when I changed schools, I'm going through their divorce and everything. I'm like, "Mom, can I go back to dance? Can I take dance classes?" And she's like, "No, you have no rhythm." Okay. I play bass, by the way. So I find that hysterical now. But it's like, so there was always this competition. And I think that when I mentioned the whole fact that she's accusing me of sleeping with the stepfather, it's the same thing. It's that competition factor.
Yeah.
And she was quite the child at times. And my therapist has told me, at points you were raising your mother. And, in all honesty, there was a point where I lived with my 5th grade teacher for 6th and 7th grade and part of 8th grade. She sent me to live with her. And it's like, so I look now back at how I don't have those solid relationships that a lot of kids did, where you went over to your friend's house or whatever. I didn't have that because I was with the world of adults. I mean, my teacher that I live with, she would be like, "Oh, you don't have to do your schoolwork today. I'm going to sign off. You can help me do this, and I'll just send you a note so you don't have to do your work." And guess what? My teachers were okay with that. So, I mean, this is the 70s, though. This is the whole. So how did you get to a point, I mean, did you ever actually get to talk to your mom about how some of the stuff that's happened and make amends with her? Or did you just go,
No, after that divorce, and then after the second divorce, now I'm in the throes of my disease. I'm a fellow adult, like you were just saying. My mom and I are going to the bar together,
okay,
right? Yes, we're dating the brothers. I mean, that kind, yes,
yeah,
yes. And so it's that mentality. And I think my mom missed that growing up. So my gosh, that's, my daughter's my best friend. And I'm thinking, my mom, this is pretty cool, because I did finally have some sort of relationship with her. And so there would be times where, she would tell part of the story or something to, another family member. And it would be like, that's not your story. You cannot talk about the abuse that happened to me. That's mine to tell. Right. There was a time where she had come through town and I said, Mom, and again, you're parenting your parent, it's like, Mom, all you'd have to do is go and talk to somebody. I've been doing therapy for years at this point, but
yeah,
it's like, Mom, you don't have to carry this crap around, oh, I don't need somebody to tell me I was a bad mother. And that was, the period. And so it was like, I would hear that. And she, at the end, I mean, I don't know if she would be a man hater, but she was very, very intolerant. She had no desire whatsoever to be even near the presence of a man.
wow,
So yeah, I think it's just now looking at it from a healed woman or a healing woman's perspective is that she didn't have the resources. Let's face it, takes a lot of courage.
yeah,
I could have sat back and drank my life away. I could have been, somebody's pillow princess or, whatever, and just keep me high and I'll be pretty and life will be fine. Right. But it takes courage to stop everything and go, what is that? Right.
yeah,
And actually hear the truth. Right. And I don't think that my mom, that one gave me chills. I don't think my mom, she isolated herself so much in that independent state that she allowed nobody in. So then there was just really no chance of anybody, even her, trusting to start that healing process. She died when she was 60.
wow,
Yeah. Yeah. And even at that last week, or maybe it was even the last month, she emailed the family and said, don't worry about me. I'm going to be fine. You don't have to take off the work, any of that stuff. I'm just down here. Just send me prayers. So she wouldn't even let people love her, which makes sense to me because I know how it is when I did not know how to love people. And it made me very uncomfortable when people would come to me, like give me hugs. And I was like, oh, Christ, stop with this.
yeah.
I'm not a touchy-feely type of person. No, it isn't. I was a wounded child.
Well,
I
and
needed a
that's
hug.
well, and that's just what I was going to say. What you've described of your mom is this is exactly why she saw what was going on. She
Yeah.
could not own it because it would hurt her too bad to know that she put you in that situation.
Is it EMDR? Is that the therapy you
Yeah.
do? Okay, I did a little of that, and I went back to a scenario of when we were at a YMCA camp for the weekend. We all come back. Well, of course, while I'm at that camp, I'm amongst people, and I'm excited, and other girls are talking, and so I'm just spilling the beans about everything. Well,
Oh,
of course, I did not go home to mommy and daddy that night. I stayed with my counselor, so Sunday night when the big bus is coming into, it's all dark and moms and parents, are all happy to see their kids. I go into the office and my mom meets me in there. And one part of this in particular, like you're saying, you didn't even realize it was weird, is that the therapist I was working with said, Jules, where were you in relation to your mom when this information was coming out to her? I said, well, I was on the counselor's side. I was next to her on her side of the desk, and my mom was sitting on the other side of the desk. And she said, if that was your daughter and you heard those words, what would you have done? oh my God, I would have flew around that desk. I would have hugged on my child. I would have probably went and kicked that guy's ass. But zilch. It was just monotone. And so that's when I started to realize like my brain has protected me. I think it's that motherly love. I think it's that parental love, like abusive people stay with, or, people stay with abusive people because it's a form of love.
Right.
Because so I think it just falls right into that. So I have to be very mindful today of what I'm putting out. Is it authentic? Is it pure? I'm grateful that I did not get into a lot of relationships. So when it comes to like manipulations and messiness and children and all that, thank God I was a mess, but I would hop from relationship to relationship. I didn't stick around long. So that was a blessing in disguise. But yeah, it's, and it took a lot for me to be able to even start off by saying, with my mom that, let's look at her resources. Like when I turned her age, and I was like, what would I do if I had a 15-year-old son right now or whatever? It'd be like, I had to like put myself in her shoes to realize there weren't pamphlets around at the, anywhere, the car wash is about, domestic abuse or childhood abuse or nothing. I mean, now it's, Christ, we talk about alcoholism on TV.
Yeah. Yeah.
Treatment centers. And, so that's where a lot of my healing has come from, is putting myself in those shoes. And I have to realize that if I had a disease of my mind and I wasn't properly medicated or properly, therapeutically, behaviorals and whatnot like that any sort of training, I would have been the same mess. Hell, I was the same mess, Mm-hmm. So it's like, it gives me the ability to let her be her. Forgiveness, right? So it comes off my chest. But there was some things I did what I had with what I did what I could with what I had. Yeah. Statement. Well, obviously you didn't do well enough. I mean, there was a lot of anger.
I've heard that statement many times. The one thing my mom did right, she did put me, my parents split, I was 9, they put me in counseling because I was acting out.
Okay.
So at 9 years old, I had a therapist, and I have to say that it made therapy after that for me. If I knew I needed a therapist, I was okay with it.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
But, talking about, you have to look at your parent as an adult, even though we were parenting our parents, mm-hmm. there's the other thing where you also have to look at, okay, so if you knew your grandparents, you kind of have to take a look at your grandparents, because the grandparents you knew are not the same grandparents that raised your mom or your dad.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this alcoholism and whatnot is generational.
Totally. It's behavioral, right? It just goes from one generation to the next.
Yeah. I mean, for me, my mom got married young. She got married at 18, and my grandmother got married even younger. And so I made a conscious choice that, okay, I'm going to finish high school and I'm going to wait to get married. I had to make those generational changes, though. I didn't want to go through what they did. And
Isn't that amazing that your child brain could comprehend that?
Now, I got something scarier for you. When I was 8, they were going to go to Disney World. My mom and dad, we would go to Disney World every year that after it opened. And I remember telling them, I don't want to go this year. And they're like, why not? I'm like, because you guys need some time alone. Yeah. So I stayed with my uncle and my aunt. But what kid says this?
Exactly.
And they weren't, it's not that I saw them fighting, because I didn't see them fighting until right before they split. I never saw them fight.
Okay.
But yet I picked up enough intuitively that I knew they needed to go.
Interesting. That would be something cool to meditate on.
Yeah.
I mean, where does that wisdom come from?
I've always been a little intuitive.
Okay.
That's where I think it really does come from. I think it's just my intuition kind of fills in the blanks sometimes.
Yeah. So, some things don't have words.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So how bad was, did you find yourself becoming the barfly?
But I was the one with the martini glass.
Oh, okay.
Why is it, do we think it's almost like the worse, like the further along in my disease I got, the like higher class I became. I don't know that's clearly the delusional part of this disease.
I get it. I mean,
I'd be shaking martinis and then pouring them in my plastic cups. And, ridiculous. But, I was very much a shaker and a mover because remember, I was afraid I did not want to get pregnant. And you can't tie me down.
right.
You can't tie me down. So then I would, the guys, I date the owner of the bar. So, like that's how I would do that because I didn't have a lot of money. I mean, I just had a basic job at 18 or whatever, 19 years old. But what happened is I took all of, like we're just talking, like these behaviors we have as children, and I catapulted them into this adult world, right? So now I'm a child with childlike behaviors, development, I guess. Now you bring me into then the toxic world that you are drawn to, as an adult child or child adult, or what we could say that. And so, here I'm trying to, act and be that person without being the mess. Right. And so, it was like, I dropped out of school in 9th grade. I mean, I got the green light, girl. I was out of there. I'm out with this, and I did the adult thing. I drank and drugged for 19 years.
Wow.
And it wasn't that I was going to party and whoop it up. And my goal was that I just wanted to get my feet underneath me. I just wanted my own stability. I had 7 transcripts. Every place I moved, I would enroll in the community college because damn it, I was going to get a degree. So then you could just leave me alone. I'll get my own job. I'll get my own, I won't need you. And then you can't harm me. Right. Then, of course, alcoholism and the delusions of it and trying to function on, yesteryear's behaviors. And it was a mess. I was a very sick person and I was very angry. Towards the end, I was so angry because I have a good heart. We have beautiful hearts. And there's only so much hope that you can give that things are going to get better.
Yeah.
Until you start thinking they're not going to get better.
Yeah.
When you get to that spot, so I'm grateful. I met a lot. I met a lot of different people. I've been able to, do a lot of healing. And for me, especially with like the name of your podcast and the real, like, what is it all about? Like, I believe on a spiritual level that the things I endured as a child were part of the journey that I was chosen. Like as a soul, I believe that I have multiple lives, right? And so at this point in time, I chose my parents. And that happened to be those 2 people because let's say I wanted to learn resilience, that the attribute of resilience as a soul. Where else are you going to learn resilience? You're not going to learn that in college. No, I'm going to put you in this situation. And so what's happened is I endured that. I survived. I mean, God didn't let me die. And I tried a couple times. Girl, I tried. And God still said, no, we're not done yet. And then now to get to this side and be like, holy shit, like, you've taken me out of the cellar. Like there's a whole different world over here. And so it's like the appreciation for things are like so abundant because it's like, when you don't have it, like you're saying, like when you went over and you started to stay with your fifth grade teacher, right? To have like that sort of environment where it was healthy.
Oh, it wasn't healthy. It wasn't healthy.
Oh, it was not. I misunderstood.
Ooh.
Okay.
She sent me over there, but I didn't go into detail. It was not a healthy environment, but go ahead.
I guess I was presumptuous.
No, that's okay. It's okay.
But now I know that in my heart of hearts, I can tell you if I'm doing something that's not in line. I've been in situations as an adult. I've done things that I have not been in line. with my authentic self. It was called survival.
Mhm.
You know, I'm a good person with a bad disease. I had to give myself enough credit of surviving all that in order to start healing, you know, to realize that that's what girls like that do when those things happen to them. They don't, how would I, why? What would I go, what? Learn how to fly a plane? Why? What? No, because that's what I was taught to do. So that sex became my vehicle. And then I could chameleonize, right? I'd see actresses and, you know, the fantastic martini glasses. And, you know, I just fantasized about that. You know, do you remember Dallas in the
Oh
80s?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, girl. I mean,
Yes.
I could not wait. And I just love, oh my God, Sue Ellen. And I mean, it was just, and so even at that stage, I was already like disassociating in a sense of like, that's what life's like, you know. And so then I took those skills and I would move from relationship to relationship and literally become who these people wanted me to be. So, you know, I'd be in a relationship with a biker, or I'd be in a relationship with this attorney, or I'd be in the relationship here with this lady in the trailer, you know. So it's like I could chameleonize beautifully, you know. So now now that I've, thank God, got sober, hit the pause button, and then in all the excess stuff was cleared. So I had that moment in time, few years of just, who am I? Like, what's my favorite color?
Yeah.
Like, do you like your hair curly? Do you even like to put makeup on? You know, minimal basic questions of who am I? You know, and I think as I did that, and then of course other people are drawn to me, different scenarios, different different ways of healing, you know, would present themselves. And so it's been ways that I've been kind of peel that onion back, you know, because now I can tell if I'm starting to trigger about something, it has nothing to do with what my husband's doing. Has nothing to do, you know. And so now it's like, now at least I have some awareness. Before I just reacted because that's all I could ever do. When somebody would touch me that way, I reacted. I didn't know any other way. So it's interesting when you look at it as the larger scope, and I see it as exactly how it was supposed to be.
Well, and what I was going to say is the chameleon thing, while it is also an alcoholic problem, I think it's also a child of trauma problem, because we had to learn how to adapt to the craziness of our parents, the craziness of what was going to come next. Being with my mom, she could be very nice at one moment, and the next minute she could be somebody else. And when I'm reading for people, because I read cards, I've talked to people and said, you know, because people don't think about this way. Trauma, when they think about triggering and they think about, you know, when you start looking at self-worth and self-deprecation and everything, everybody says, oh, well, alcoholism is a disease. And I'm not saying it's not,
Okay.
but trauma is a whole nother thing that you can trigger something and your self-esteem can go down just like that. But nobody ever looks at that. And it was interesting because I was watching SVU and they were talking about post-traumatic stress disorder. And then they brought in HALT. And it was about being hungry and angry and lonely and tired. And I had never heard that though, but it resonated with me because it's like, it really is true, because as a child of trauma, you are hungry. You're hungry for the affection that you didn't get. You're angry because you didn't get the affection. When I look at my first marriage, I had two lovely kids. They were 4 and 6 when they came into my life. I adored them. They were my life. I stayed in that marriage longer, and I even married him because of the kids, because they were everything to me. But the fact of the matter was, I don't know that I really loved their dad as much as I thought I did. I loved them. And I think it was my chance at being a parent to give somebody the love that I wanted that made that so enticing. So I think whether it be the alcoholism or the bad marriage, and here's the thing, I left him because eventually in my mind, I said, he's going to leave me first. And even I was with my second husband for 16 years, and I realized not too long ago, it's like, he was sick when we got together. I always knew he was going to leave me. So, and that was a lot to unpack when I unpacked that, because it's like, so you're still making that same choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if you don't intentionally do it.
Mm-hmm.
Which we had great 16 years, don't get me wrong, but it's one of those things where you stop and you go, well, wait a second.
Mm-hmm.
Subconsciously, you still did it.
Yeah. And I think because there are things, of course, that drinking and drugging and being in those places with people and doing, there are things that, yeah, of course, I'm not proud of, but I'm not embarrassed of. And my book is definitely about that authenticity, vulnerability, honesty. I mean, it's like I have no reason. First off, I don't people please anymore. So if my book is offensive, it just simply means then if you don't like strawberries, don't eat strawberries. Like I'm just put the book back down.
Yeah.
But that's something that's really, it's really important because, like you're saying, as a child, it's like your mind will not play tricks on you, but it protects you.
Mm-hmm.
And it does the same as an adult.
Yeah.
How many times have you looked back and go, oh my God, I didn't see that one coming. Right. So
pick the same person, even though they're a different person. They're my best friend. And it's like, wait a second, 5 months later, like, wait a second, this is such and such from then. And why am I going through this again?
I call that your picker's broken.
The pothole theory. You keep falling into the same pothole.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
But I want to say, I haven't gotten a chance to read your book. I do have a copy of it. And, the opening, why can't I get my feet underneath me? Why do I keep making the same mistakes? And why can't I fit the mold? I think especially growing up in the 70s, we had a mold to fit. We were supposed to be the perfect little girl, the perfect, the one to play with Barbies. And this was the ideal image. You're supposed to grow up, get married, have a family. And that was supposed to be life. And dare you buck that system. And you did buck the system and you survived. But then you had this different relationship with your mom because of it.
Oh, yeah. In my entire family.
Yeah.
I mean, I still, my aunts and uncles from my mom's side, I don't have any communication with them at all. I have no desire because really it's toxic. And they don't come reaching for me. So it's not that I come, reaching for them. And I've had to come to terms with that because, in the beginning, it's like, it's really easy, I think, for it to be like, oh man, I just have nobody and I'm all by myself, or, that loneliness. Right. But then I was thinking, it's like, gosh, but what kind of company do I want? There's so many things that happened that while they were happening, I didn't even realize the depth of it. Seeing my uncle with that beer can there, when I was 5, like that just became the norm. Today, I don't feel the need. I was born to these parents, like
mm-hmm. Yeah.
been said, it's like, I didn't choose, I didn't want kids. It's like, this is your choice, right? So this is my choice. And so, I'm okay with it. And I think I also believe that everybody has their own contract with God. We as humans are the ones who say, you go with this one and you go with this one and you go with this one. So that's all like human arranged, right? And I get it. I'm not weird. I get it, right? But when you look at it on a cellular or even on a spiritual level, that doesn't really hold a lot of weight. And so the obligations, for instance, of like when, it's Christmas, I got to go to my family's. Why would my source have me go back into that pit?
Well, there was a meme I saw that is very fitting for this conversation because it said, we need to start normalizing this. When someone says, I'm not going there, don't sit there and say, well, they're your dad or they're your mom or they're your siblings. If they're toxic, why are you putting yourself in that toxic situation?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it comes down to. Why do you want to put yourself in that toxic situation? You don't have to. Nobody said you had to.
And right there, the obligation, right? So if you even take that word right there, and then now let's go ahead and scan the rest of your world, your life. What else do I do because I feel obligated? Right? As a woman, I smile.
Mm-hmm.
when I meet you in the hallway, I'm supposed to smile. I'm supposed to be polite. What other, like just to start recognizing these obligations that I've just acquired. Part of the book is I got into bodybuilding when I turned 40.
Ask you about that. That was my
Yes.
next thing.
Yeah. And so, that's something too. Like you said, I kind of bucked the system, and I haven't heard that word in a long time, but it's really the truth. And so, it's kind of like, oh, you're supposed to be small framed, and you're supposed to be pretty. I just took third place on a national stage. Right. So it's like I got to reinvent what feminine meant to me. Right. And so that makes me understand that we're not cookie cutters. We need to be that authentic self. So everybody is different. Right. And so I can walk in the best of the heels with like anybody. Right. Like I'm very feminine, but I can also kill it on the stage, things like that, that in fact, for Christmas, made a bet with my stepson that if he could bring home a 3.5, that I would learn how to downhill ski. So,
So are we skiing now?
I don't know. We're supposed to be leaving next week, but I am preparing because I already have skiing lessons. But it's like I am almost 50 years old, and I am now going to go try something that most 50-year-old women would be like, oh, I'm just too old for that. Like these dogmas and obligations, and I just break boxes. I hate boxes.
But that's the way our society works. Our society puts us all in these little boxes. And, the one thing I hate is now, because when I got divorced, I was single again. I didn't sit there and wear the divorcee label. I'm sorry, it's none of your damn business. However, now that I'm a widow, it's on my car insurance. It's on my taxes. Seriously. Seriously.
So now you have a title.
Yes.
What do you feel about that?
I hate that word, because really it all it does is set you up as a for predators. I mean, seriously, I've been hit on by people online because they assume that because I'm a widow, I must have money.
Oh, shit. Well, you're definitely helpless. That's got to definitely be the case.
Yes. I need a man to help. No, honestly, my husband was legally blind, and I fixed our freezer. We had the heater guy call up because the heater went out, and he's like, I can talk you through it. Okay. So I fixed the heater, and my husband was okay with that. My first husband, on the other hand, the one thing my stepfather did, he taught me how to work in a car. Yes. He's like, you're going to learn how to drive. You're going to work in a car. My first husband, I'm like, well, let me help you work on the brakes. No, this is man's work. Now, can you imagine me being with somebody like that? I decided I was going to be the cookie cutter little girl, and no, that's not who I am. I'd rather take my power back, and that's the thing. It's about breaking that mold. And I think when you look back at the 70s, we had Barbie dolls that were cookie cutter Barbie dolls. Now you have Barbie dolls that are on all shapes and sizes,
all different colors and hair, and yes. Oh gosh, Barbie and Ken. How nauseating is that? I didn't even have Barbies growing up because I was the tomboy. So I got the little Matchbox cars and all of that. But it was like, even then, it was like, that is so fake.
I had Matchbox cars. I had Barbies, and it made me, in a way, when I look at it, it's like I thought blonde hair, blue eyes was the play to be. You had to have blonde hair and blue eyes, and almost every actress, when you think about it, and I mean, I've had my blonde moments, but every actress, they always end up going blonde for some reason. Now, granted, I admit, when you're going gray, highlights are great. I'm not gonna knock that, but I just
I would never have the conversation, right? Huh? I never thought I'd be talking to my girlfriends about gray hair.
That's a conversation. Yeah, you don't imagine and then when you hit 50 or 40 and you start seeing the gray, you're like, oh, yeah.
Or it's not as full as it usually is. It's like, oh, shit, my hair is like kind of thin.
That's something nobody tells you about grief, that when you're going through grief, you will lose your hair. I'm like, so this is just really Hi, let me help you. We're going to make you really feel good about yourself. You're grieving. Guess what? You're going to lose some hair too.
Mhm. Do you think you'd have felt better knowing it, that the possibility was there? Or would you rather just go and explore, the grief on your own terms?
I was already exploring the grief because September before he died in June, and September before we were told he was on borrowed time. And I am an author. And for some weird reason, about March, I started writing a character who lost her husband. And so my husband would be walking by and smile at me and everything. And I'd be bawling my eyes out writing this. And then I'd stop and smile and we'd talk. And then he'd go back and I'd start typing and crying again. So I was already grieving, even though I wasn't grieving.
Interesting.
Once again, there's that mind working ahead of
Mhm.
the
Well,
game.
also the intuition that's preparing you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you find now that the upbringing that you've had, all of the twists and the turns, and do you find that you have more clairvoyance, or like you talked about that you do cards, do you find that those things are more accessible within you?
For me, I mean, I guess I should go here first. For me, my mom would go get her cards read in the French Quarter. So I would say
Okay.
from like sixth grade on, I would be drugged to these places, these metaphysical stores. And
Okay.
it'd be kind of like, wow, okay, this is kind of cool. And it was always this kind of little, I had this little dabble of interest, never could do anything with it. But I mean, I can go back and look at prophetic dreams I had in eighth grade and just other times. So it's like, I've always had it. In all honesty, I was born in New Orleans, and this is just hokey. I'll just say it. I was born on Friday the 13th in October in New
Okay.
Orleans. So it's always been like a running gag. And then I have a Pisces moon, which is an intuitive moon. And it's like, so I think for me, it's always kind of been there. And I've kind of, it's, it develops at different places because I've had medium stuff come through that I never really even thought I would have that ability. But then when
Yeah.
I can actually plug in, and the worst thing for me is a lot of mediums don't feel this. For me, and this is why I don't do it very often, they like to come and show me how they died. They like to let me feel how they died. And honestly, that's not the most pleasant thing in the world
No. What would be the benefit of that?
because I can recognize them.
Oh, oh,
The
kind of
first,
like what we were talking about earlier.
the
As,
first person
as
I
okay.
the first person I ever had that experience with was on a Halloween night, and it was my mother. And I was with a group of friends, and we're all sitting around, hanging around, and doing a group meditation. And all of a sudden, I got this searing pain in the side of my head, like an ice pick, like somebody had taken an ice pick and jammed it in my head.
Hmm.
And I didn't know what it was. I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, "Gosh, this hurts. What the hell?" And then I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, mom." As soon as I said mom, it went away.
Oh,
She shot herself in the head.
I was going to ask, how did your mom die?
She shot herself in the head.
Oh, shit.
So how do you does it does I think ultimately it's like I've stepped away at times from it, but it's always there. It always comes back. And I stepped away from my reading business for like 2 years, and I started coming back, and I read for somebody the other day, and I was like, I just didn't feel great about it because it has been 2 years. And then she called me 2 days later, and she's like, oh, I have to tell you something. And then she messages me again. She's like, I have to tell you something else because something you told me that the part I was like, because she was just like, oh no, I don't have anybody in my life like that. Another reader sent her a message, the exact same thing I had told her.
Oh.
So I'm like, okay,
So do you think your human self is trying to deny it? Like
yeah.
push it away?
Well, as one of my friends said the other day, she's like, and she's known me since 1995. She's like, you talk about podcasting, you talk about being an author, you're very out there, you're very passionate about it. When you talk about being a reader, even though you've done it for years, you do it through gritted teeth. And I think the fact is, it's once again that mold, that box, because not everybody wants to embrace the metaphysical. And if they embrace the metaphysical, they sometimes just want it in the nice cookie cutter woo factor. And I
Mm.
don't normally do nice, sweet
Ooh,
cookie cutter things. That's just not who I am. I mean, I will tell you if you're being too hard on yourself, I'm going to get in your face and tell you the truth. And maybe not harshly, but I'm going to be honest with you. And
So
I think that's hard.
when you go to the bookstore under the New Age, the title New Age,
Mhm.
what are you drawn to? Are there any sort of, book? I always see it like there's different levels, right? Of doing things, right? Like there's some people who work with stones. There's some people who, can, work through like energies, those sorts of things. But the people who can really like that clairvoyant or that can go, to the medium, that for me, I believe it would be possible, but I am nowhere near that level.
The intuition, everybody's got intuition. We just don't always use it. And it's funny you mentioned the bookstore because I started cleaning up my nook since I'm reclaiming my life. And I started cleaning up my nook, which is this space in our living room that has bookshelves and it has all my metaphysical books and they run the gamut. I mean, they're just a huge gamut of different types of books. When I took an intuition class, I was having a lot of hits coming up. And the first class I took, it was me and another lady and the teacher. In the middle of the class, she's like, okay, I want you guys to stand behind each other and say out loud what you get. I'm like, okay. So I put my hands on this lady's shoulders and I start telling her about her boyfriend and how he has this curly hair, but it looks more wavy than curly for most people. His eyes, everybody swear they're blue, but they're actually green. And as I'm doing this, I'm feeling the sensation coming up in my left side, like just this tingling, weird sensation. And it's growing as I'm rattling this stuff off. And I honestly scared the crap out of myself. I took my hands off and I'm like, well, that's enough. Because when you feel something moving into you like that connection, it was just freaky. So,
yeah.
And for me, and the one thing I will say about the way I do readings is I do an hourglass spread and I call it the story spread. And the thing about readings is people are always I have questions and I want to know this and I want to know that. When I do the spread, the center of that reading is what you should be focusing on. Mm-hmm. And a prime example is I read for this lady that had been a client for a while and she had a house party and it was 10 o'clock. She was an older lady and I sat down with her and I am an empath. So I pick up on people's energy and I'm exhausted. I mean, it's like she sits down and I am just wiped and I was fine before. And I'm like, okay. So I start reading her and I'm telling her all about her kids, her grown kids. And she looks at me and she goes, I don't want to know about my kids. I want to know about this man. This was after I'm done. And I'm like, look, I said, it's late. I will come back over and I will read for you another time for free. Don't worry about it. I'm sorry. She goes, okay, no problem. I leave, get in my car. My energy is like back. Like, okay. Still the mind's not putting all these pieces together. Yeah. So I see this lady that was at the party the next day. And then about 2 months later, I see her again at the grocery store. And she's like, I'm glad I ran across you. And I haven't seen her since. But I'm like, okay. And she's like, well, you such and such. And I'm like, yeah. She goes, 2 days after you read her, she ended up in the hospital and she had pneumonia and she died. And I'm like, okay.
Okay.
So that made total sense as the reading was all about her kids. She wanted to know about that guy, but the reading actually gave her closure to know that her kids were going to be okay. The guy was irrelevant. And that's my point. It's like, you can sit there and go to a reader and ask what you want. Oh, am I going to get back with this guy? I mean, I sat across from my husband before we ever dated. We were just friends. And I read for him and I told him some blonde was going to come in and rock his world and turn it completely upside down. And he looks at me and he goes, is that my ex-girlfriend? I'm like, I have no idea who that is. Because I'm not putting myself in his reading. But we were ultimately, there was a lot of connections and parallels in our life when we started unpacking that.
Wow. See, I find that stuff very exciting. And I think because there's so much healing, things that I cannot touch that happens in my life. This book was a prime example. As I'm reading it, almost like in third person, I'm reading about this girl. And it's like, holy shit. I mean, what? How did somebody at that depth, how you get sober? How did you not just end your life? Like, what? There's got to be something bigger, right? And so I had always been said that I was a light worker, right? I'm very healing hands. I've been in healthcare for years, and it's always just been my thing. And I remember I had met another lady, and she was in a massage therapist, right? So she was very much like the energy healer, and I mean, she woo woo for me at the time. I totally woo woo, but I would kind of take little bits and pieces because my mind was like, "Don't go here. This is stupid," But it was a New Year's Eve, and I went to bed, and I just said, "Source, I'm scared to death, but if you need me to learn that, I am open. I am willing, but do know that I am very scared to go." Into this light working, this light, and it was quite awesome because then the pressure was like, okay, whew, I made the agreement. Mm-hmm. Now I just have to be available, and like you're saying, it looks so many different ways, and the impressions that you make on people, like this book, for instance, is like, oh my God, let's just sell this book. People like, your story is great, la, 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 and then it's like, I'm all up here in my head. And then all this, just even recently, I was like, why did I do this in the first place? I don't want to be sitting around writing books all my life. That's not my deal, right? I wanted to connect to that girl in the back of the room. That's what this is about. And so it's like, I cut back on all of this, marketing and this media, and I pulled way back, and I'm like, I'm not here to make a buck. I'm not here to become some superstar. I'm here to get that book into the girl's hand down there at the treatment center. So for me, it's real. I have to be very cognizant of my human mind and my spiritual soul, and make sure that they do align. Because like you were just saying with this lady in the reading, she completely, her will just plowed right through that reading. I don't want that. I want to be led through here, because anytime I did here was always a disaster. So.
Well, and that's the thing, we can overanalyze stuff so much that we take out any kind of manifestation or creation point that we want. If we sit there and overanalyze it, we chase things away. You're talking about healing hands. Something I have noticed, and I've had a guest on that actually sees everything kind of like as in an energy matrix, which is really awesome. But for me, when I've had massage therapists work on me, some I see nothing. Others, I actually see what I call a lava light, because it's like the indigo blue or purple. Just when they're working around my head, I can see these baubles. And one of them's like, are you sure it's just not light? I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. I can tell. So for me, I think it just develops over time. And I think if you sat down, I'm sure, I can guarantee you've thought about people calling you, and they've called. You've thought about a song on the song, and it comes on the radio. Those are all little intuition hits. They're intuitive hits.
Well, manifestations. Yes, totally.
And so you need to recognize that when something feels right in your gut, that it is true.
Yes. Recently, in fact, I saw a particular picture they were going to put on the cover of the book. And I've been kind of, doing my journaling and whatnot. And one of the meditators that I follow is David G. And so I'm flipping through, and the same picture. And I was like, I'm supposed to listen to this? Like that's how I become. That's how I see Source showing me things. Like if I keep, I was like, oh, you're the third person that's told me that. I got to go buy this book, right? Like, it's like, I don't deny it anymore. In fact, I'm like, keep showing me, because it gets me to where I need to be.
Have you thought about getting the book to maybe some high school counselors and maybe a juvenile detention center, places where kids that are in need and crisis, that I would say are more of an average normal place, would benefit?
I love that you've asked this. I appreciate that you asked this, because there's parts of my book that is very adult life,
right?
And so in fact, recently I was like, okay, I'm going to change the cover, because the cover's too promiscuous for some, I got denied on that a couple of times because it's a little too risque. And I thought, what if I were to take those chapters out the adult life chapters and changed the book cover, would it appeal to more people? Like, but then I don't know. I don't want to change something that intuitively.
There's two things here I want to say to you. Firstly, number one, intuitively, if that cover was what called to you, then you keep the cover. Secondly, don't look at adolescents as the adolescents that we were. They are a lot more and way ahead of the game than we ever could have been.
So true. Oh my God, that's so true.
I mean, come on. They think anal keeps them a virgin.
Well, it does, doesn't it?
But you know what I'm getting at. I mean, we never even thought about that kind of stuff. You know, I mean, so think about that. So don't look at it as, oh, well, they're just too in it. They're a lot more advanced than what, and some of them maybe not, but most of them are a lot more advanced than what we were.
And oh my gosh, this is fantastic, because I was really twisting and turning. In fact, I had already, started the drafting of the new cover and what is this? And I was like, I cannot second guess this though. And so I actually withdrew. I stopped.
If you feel resistant, if you send it to somebody, if you're going to send it to a Catholic school, which I don't think you would, but if you sent it to an all-girl Catholic school, which do they even have all-girl Catholic schools anymore? I don't know. But if you sent them to them, then change the cover and take those out, and they can have their little pious book. But the fact of the matter is, if you're trying to reach kids that are in trouble and that can learn from your lesson and that want to connect. I mean, I had a gentleman on here who was 16 and tried to commit suicide, and he survived. And so now in his 20s, even though he's paralyzed, he's finally getting some function back in his legs. He's starting to. He's out there trying to help kids at risk. So you were given this journey and this life and all these lessons, not for you just to hold them and make you who you are, but you wrote this book to put this out there to help others. So you have to embrace and open it up.
And I think I have some work to do around the shame of that chapter. Like in my family, my husband's family, have you read that book? Like there's just, they're intolerant of it, and John's like, yeah, it's a good book, and the rolling of the eyes, and it's kind of at the dinner table, so I've got some shame there I got to release, because it's the story. I didn't make it up. I'm telling you just what happened. So it's not mine to change.
That shame is still the little girl.
Yeah. So I got some work to do there.
I mean,
but I love the idea that it's where it's supposed to be. And I love the idea that you opened up my eyes that they're not the kids we were.
No, they're not. I mean, think about it. When we grew up watching the news, we had the message on the news: if you have small children, please remove them from the room because this may be too harsh for them. Now, oh, look, they blew this up. Oh, yeah. The movies now, we had, now we have the blood and gore. So kids are not, video games, they're graphic and violent. So they're not the same kids that we were.
All right. Oh, I'm going to take this one into meditation big time.
Hopefully it helps. I have all your social links. Is there anything that we have not discussed that you would like to add?
I think looking back and going through and feeling so misguided and blind and confused and burnt out and drunk and just all of that, at this stage, I now know that it was exactly how it was supposed to be. I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. For the longest time, I felt like such a loser and such a burnout and all of the things. And, the first chapter of the book, I will list out like 8 things. You're a slut, a loser, a dropout, all of these things. that's everything I was supposed to be. Because now, for instance, they become my strengths. So, okay, so perhaps I was promiscuous growing up. Now I'm sexually liberated. I'm open-minded. I may have dropped out in ninth grade. That proves to me as an adult, I'm a very good self-teacher. So all of the stones have now become gems. So my point is that be cautious on the judgments, because from what I've experienced in this lifetime is nothing could be possible without the things happening the way they did. So that's something I take that one home.
Well, and it goes back to number one, labels. We tend to fall for those labels, and how many people would say some of those nasty things to you, and getting mentally healthy and reframing things. Yeah. The one thing that we are not taught, besides learning how to manage stress, is to be gracious with ourselves.
Oh no.
We are always taught to tear ourselves down. And it comes from the parents, it comes from siblings, it comes from friends, it comes from teachers. We are never taught that, hey, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be you.
Yeah, that's a big one to chew on. That one's big. Yeah.
Well, on that note, I won't take up any more of your time. It's been great talking to you.
This has been fantastic.
I've enjoyed it. Jules is one of those people that I've had on the podcast that I actually feel a really good connection with. And we talked for, dare I say, a little while afterwards, after the podcast was over. So she's a pretty amazing lady. And, I would definitely pick up her book. I have a copy. I plan on reading it. Even though I don't get to read a lot, I do plan on reading it because it's something that I'm sure I can relate to. And I think a lot of us who have gone through childhood trauma can, because ultimately that trauma that we went through makes us who we are. And it's time to embrace that. We can sit here. It's kind of one of those things that I've talked about on the podcast before and talked about with writers. The fact is that we hit a certain age and we don't want to acknowledge that maybe at 18 or 19, we didn't make those right choices. We didn't make those fully formed choices. But the truth is we made the choices that were best for us at that time. Now as an adult, we can unpack our traumas, we can unpack our choices, and we can look at those things very clearly. And that's the important key to this. In order to heal, in order to move forward and to create a life we want, we have to heal the trauma and the pain of the past. Now, I've said this before on the podcast, and it was a movie, but our past is not chasing us. We're chasing our past. So we need to look at it clearly, reframe it, accept it, and take what we can from it, the lessons. But then we need to heal ourselves, forgive ourselves, look at ourselves with grace, and say, it's okay. I made it through. I am who I am. And I'm going to continue to survive, and I'm going to thrive, because ultimately all those lessons taught us was who we are at our core. They taught us that we can survive, we can get past the struggle, and we can be something bigger than who we are. So on that note, all Jules's links are in the show notes. And if you want to be a guest on the show, or you have a question or comment, please don't hesitate to reach out at Dauna, DAUNA, at better2podcast.com. All of our episodes from this one to the past, since day one, is on the better2podcast.com site. All of our social links are on the better2podcast.com page site. And if you want to subscribe to the show, please do so. If you want to leave a review, you can leave a review at Podchaser or applepodcast.com. And any support for the show would be greatly appreciated. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the show, and thank you for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time. Bye. You are listening to the Better 2 Podcast with DM Needham.